55 to 45. The ayes have it. The bill is agreed to.
And there you have it. The Utility Nationalization Act of 2026 has been passed, and considering that the President is likely to sign it, it is now almost a given that water, gas, and electricity are now under public ownership of the state. Sarah, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know really what to think, John. 10 years ago, this would have been unthinkable. But since the Bruck and Llewellyn administrators, there really has been a shift to the left in this country.
One does wonder where the nation goes from here, especially with the midterms coming up. There was certainly a great deal of conservative outrage at this bill, but it appears that despite the controversy, the Democratic Party was able to pull it off.
Do you think this will put wind in the sails of the Republicans?
It could, but with the 2026 midterms only a few months away, they have some ground to make up, and I'm not sure if it's that likely. What I'm more interested in is the potential reaction from Republican strongholds, particularly in the Southeast.
I agree. It will be interesting, since they were the most vocal against this bill. But one thing is for sure, though. The economic landscape of America has changed forever.
We interrupt this regularly scheduled programming with some breaking news. Normal programming will resume following the conclusion of this report.
Good afternoon, I'm Douglas Brown. We've interrupted normal programming on WVTM to bring you news coming from the state capitol, where Governor Jonathan Hall is preparing to make a statement on yesterday's passage of the Utilities Nationalization Act. As you may or may not know, this effectively placed water, gas, and electricity under the control of the federal government through public ownership. Governor Hall, from what we understand, was a significant opponent of the bill. However, about half an hour ago, every single Democratic representative and senator stormed out of the Alabama legislature, so one wonders if... Okay, I've just been informed that Governor Hall is about ready to make his speech, and will be cutting into the broadcast. Please stand by.
My fellow Alabamians, our nation faces a crisis. Our crisis does not come from abroad, from a mighty enemy, or from terrorists who wish to destroy our nation from within, but it comes from the government itself. The soul of this nation is dying. The communists in power have done nothing but ruin our fair nation. First with Llewellyn, who ordered the deaths of thousands of Americans in the Ira pandemic and set us down the path of socialism with her education and healthcare laws. Now, her successor, President Sean Wells, has provided the ultimate insult to this nation. Should we continue down this path, we shall have no choices left in our nation, and we will be nothing more than a totalitarian state masquerading as a democracy. To be American is to have the freedom of choice, and to have the freedom of living the life one chooses, particularly in the free market. For this reason, the state of Alabama has decided to secede from the United States, in protest of a government which seeks to destroy the soul of this country, until this bill and all the other socialist bills are rendered null and void. It's my hope that all Americans stand up to this tyranny and follow along with me. God bless you all, and God bless the state of Alabama.
Nou, dit is dus de huiskamer. En dan komen we hier bij de slaapkamer. Oh ja. Met...
We interrupt this program. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow. This is an emergency action notification. All broadcast stations and cable systems shall transmit this emergency action notification message. This station has interrupted its regular programming at the request of the White House to participate in the emergency alert system. During this emergency, most stations will remain on the air providing news and information to the public in assigned areas. This is WKRN. We will continue to serve the Nashville area. If you are not in this local area, you should tune to stations providing news and information for your local area. You are listening to the emergency alert system serving the Nashville area. Do not use your telephone. The telephone line should be kept open for emergency use. We interrupt our programming at the request of the White House. This is the emergency alert system. All normal programming has been discontinued during this emergency. This is WKRN. This station will continue furnishing news, official information and instructions for the Nashville area. If you are not in the Nashville area, you should tune to stations providing news and information for your area. It is important that you listen carefully to announcements from the station in your local area. We interrupt our programming at the request of the White House. This is...
Please stand by for a message from the representative of the President.
My fellow Americans, I will not sugarcoat the situation we face. I am standing in for President Sean Wells as being transported to a secure location because we face a crisis not seen in more than 150 years, a civil war. Earlier in the afternoon, roughly 6 hours ago, Governor Jonathan Hall of Alabama declared his state had seceded from the Union. The position of the federal government is at this time that secession is null and void. As a result, if Governor Hall does not stand down within the next 48 hours, he will be removed by force. In accordance with the drastic turn of events, the following actions are to be implemented. 1. All American Reserve military members and members of the National Guard not already deployed are ordered to report for immediate deployment. 2. In order to prevent the further secessionist acts across the United States, the amended Emergency Powers Act of 2025 has also been activated. In accordance with the act, the following actions will be taken. 1. Some freeways at airports, railways, and seaports will be closed to civilian traffic until further notice. 2. In some areas, normal programming will be suspended from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. to focus on the crisis at hand. Finally, all police leaves will be canceled until further notice, and martial law will now be in effect. My fellow Americans, and every American has their right to voice their opinion in this nation. We have our differences after all. The Bill of Rights, a central part of the Constitution, allows this. With this in mind, though, it is disturbing to hear Governor Hall's statements about the government. We are not, as he claims, trying to build a totalitarian state. The decision to attempt secession for that reason is concerning. President Wells is willing to admit he has some differences with those across the aisle. But he also knows we are seeking a better America through different means. To think we would reject all notion of choice or to reject the free market is completely nothing short of a ridiculous exaggeration. We seek no such thing. My fellow Americans, it is true we do not all have the same vision for America, but we all know the price of war, and this country simply cannot afford it. Neither can we all. To the people of Alabama, know that you still have a choice. You do not have to follow your governor down a path of death and destruction. You can still pull back. Governor Hall does not have to represent you. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America.
That was a message from the representative of the President. We will now return to the emergency alert system.
This concludes operations under the emergency alert system. All normal programming operations may now resume. message is transmitted at the request of currently taking place throughout the Montgomery area. Due to the mass rioting and civil unrest in the Montgomery area, all Montgomery area residents, including the city,
required to stay at home on the order of Governor Hall. All those who remain outside will.
Do not participate in the riots. Repeat, do not participate in the riots. Doing so will put your life at risk, and you will be arrested. Repeating, due to mass rioting in the Montgomery area, martial law is now in effect, and all Montgomery residents are ordered to shelter in place until further notice. Do not participate in the riots, you will be arrested. This message will repeat and the following message is transmitted at the request of the Governor of Tennessee and the Tennessee National Guard. Due to the potential of military operations along the Tennessee-Alabama border, all Tennessean residents within 20 miles of the Alabama border are required to evacuate immediately. Evacuation centers are currently being set up and their locations will be announced in a later broadcast. In order to help with the evacuation, I-65 is now enacting contraflow from as far south as Ardmore and as far north as Bradshaw. If you require assistance in evacuating the area, dial 911 for assistance by city or military personnel. If you have space in your vehicle, offer to take others with you who do not have a vehicle. Most importantly, remain calm. Panicking will only make the situation far worse. Do not interfere with the efforts of civil and military authorities or engage in civil disobedience. Doing so is grounds for immediate arrest without subject to counsel. Repeating, due to the potential risk of military operations along the Tennessee-Alabama border, all Tennessean residents within 20 miles of the Alabama border are required to evacuate immediately. This message will repeat in 5 minutes.
And for a report on the crisis, we now go to Daniel Smith, who is in Kootenai near the Mississippi-Alabama border. Daniel?
Alex, as you can hear behind me, the Mississippi National Guard is preparing for the worst. Over the last 12 hours, units of the Mississippi National Guard have been digging what I can only describe as trenches on the Mississippi-Alabama border crossings at I-5920 and US 1180. As you can hear behind me, the construction is still ongoing. Additionally, in just the last few minutes, I've seen several F-35 fighters flying overhead, and they're probably on their way to the Meridian Naval Air Station as we speak.
Have you seen any developments on the other side of the border?
Yes, Alex. Defecting members of the 167th Infantry Regiment, not to mention the countless numbers of civilian volunteers, have taken up positions in the towns of York and Cuba. However, if reports are to be believed, these deployments are being hampered by conflicts within the state between loyalist forces who have been backed up by rioters in the Black Belt and urban centers who were against the secession to begin with.
Are there any other deployments along the border that you know of?
Alex, I've received reports that effectively state that wherever there's a major road crossing the border, there are improvised fortifications being set up like this one here. However, many of the deployments on the Alabama side appear to be disorganized, and though there have been similar attempts to rise up across the southeastern United States, these have apparently been put down.
One last question, Daniel. Given the situation that you see now, would you argue that military action is imminent?
Well, with Governor Hall apparently remaining steadfast, even as his own attempts to raise forces are being hampered by conflicts throughout his own state, and more forces coming in by the hour, I'd say that military action is almost certainly imminent. Everyone here is just waiting in anticipation for the word go.
Alright, Daniel, thanks for your report. Keep in touch.
Sure thing, I'll try to, Alex.
Information coming out of Alabama has been described as sketchy, as no news from the interior of the state has come out, though there have been reports of mass rioting and low-intensity conflicts. Internet services are believed to be down in the state, and what little information coming out suggests that a complete moratorium on information is in effect in the state. I'm Alex Adams, and we'll be back with more reports on the crisis in Alabama after a quick station identification.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Tuscaloosa County Commission and the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office. As of 6:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuscaloosa County, by order of the Tuscaloosa County Commission, has been declared to be open. All armed forces and militia still in the county are ordered to leave at this time. To ensure compliance, all Tuscaloosa County residents are ordered to shelter in place for the next 48 hours. Those caught outside will be subject to immediate arrest and prosecution without counsel. In the event American troops enter the state, you are not allowed to open fire on them within the county. Doing so could potentially forfeit the county's open status, and you could be harming those who are complying with the order. Repeating, as of 6:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuscaloosa County has been declared open and all armed forces and militia still in the county are ordered to leave at this time. Do not open fire on any advancing American troops. You could be forfeiting the county's open status and placing everyone else at risk. This message will repeat in 1 minute.
As we wait for the ultimatum to expire, the atmosphere just outside of Columbus, and while I'm aware that this has been overused, could be cut by a knife. Behind me, at least 2 companies of the Mississippi National Guard, along with another company of regular army, have taken positions in and around US 82 as it heads into Alabama, each of which are heavily armed. I also see what looks like a couple of M1 Abrams tanks, in addition to a couple M113 APCs. On the other side, there's probably around 100 to 200 militiamen, each armed with bolt-action rifles, AR-15s, and while there are some soldiers with them, the unit seems rather disorganized at this time. That's an F-35. Probably took off from Columbus Air Force Base, and it's the third one that's taken off in the last 10 minutes. I've also seen a couple of F-16s coming from Alabama as well, so if this does turn into actual fighting, it won't be just a ground war.
The ultimatum has just expired, Erica. Do you see any movement down there?
Not that I've seen so far. I have to imagine that there's some hesitancy to fire on other Americans, not to mention that there could still be some back-channel negotiating going on. There's also the issue of several major cities that have declared themselves open, so it's possible that the governor could have backed off and is now negotiating, but...
Erica, are you still there?
William, fighting has just broken out between members of the Army and the Alabama National Guard. I've just taken cover in a ditch, but William, I just saw a guy get his head blown clean off. You don't go into this job thinking you'll see things like this. Not in America, anyway.
Erica, breathe. What are you seeing?
William, the tanks have just moved up. The soldiers in the trenches behind me are moving forward, as there's some covering fire coming from the APCs on the highway. Many of the people that were holding positions are holding their ground, but it's turning into a massacre. These are civilians and reservists against trained soldiers. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Two of the F-35s that took off earlier are now engaged in what I can only describe as a 21st century aerial dogfight with an F-16. The sight would be beautiful if it weren't for what's at stake. The F-16 has just put out some flares. They certainly got... Do I look like I'm armed, you idiots?
Erica, are you okay?
Sorry. One of the guys, I think on the Alabama side, just took a couple of pot shots at me. I think I'm alright, but I'm not gonna stay here long if... William, one of the fighter jets, and given the outline, I think it's the F-16, has just been hit. The aircraft is trailing flames. I see a chute, but... Get back! Everybody get back!
Erica? Ladies and gentlemen, we appear to have lost Erica Phillips. We will try to get back into contact with her when and if we can. In the meantime, I've just received word that, in addition to the fighting that has broken out near Columbus, similar incidents are occurring up and down the Mississippi-Alabama border, along with similar incidents along Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia, although... I've just received word that we've re-established contact with Erica Phillips near Columbus. Erica?
William, I'm taking shelter behind the news van now, and I'm really sorry for the sudden cutoff, but the F-16 that was shot down nearly crashed into my position. I can see the fires from the craft still burning about 100 yards away. The fighting is beginning to wind down, but given that this was likely just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the number of people participating in this insurrection. The F-35s from earlier are now returning to base, having expended their weapons, and the military is continuing to advance into Alabama. Though this individual incident may be over, the crisis is far from over. William?
Thank you for your information, Erica. Just try and stay safe out there, okay?
Under the circumstances, I'm not sure that's entirely possible, but I'll try.
We're going to perform a station identification here on Mississippi Public Radio here, and we'll try to get you more information on the rapidly intensifying situation when we can. Until then, this has been Mississippi Public Radio, and we'll be back.
Due to the current emergency, WXIA-TV is currently off the air. For information on the current crisis, you are requested to turn to 1610 or 5:30 a.m. for news on this current emergency. This message will repeat in 30 seconds. Due to the current emergency, WXIA-TV is currently off the air. For information on the...
We interrupt this program. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow. This is an emergency action notification. All broadcast stations and cable systems shall transmit this emergency action notification message. This station has interrupted its regular programming at the request of the White House to participate in the emergency alert system. During this emergency, most stations will remain on the air providing news and information to the public in assigned areas. This is WXIA. We will continue to serve the Atlanta area. If you are not in this local area, you should tune to stations providing news and information for your local area. You are listening to the emergency alert system serving the Atlanta area. Do not use your telephone. The telephone line should be kept open for emergency use. We interrupt our programming at the request of the White House. This is the emergency alert system. All normal programming has been discontinued during this emergency. This is WXIA. This station will continue furnishing news, official information and instructions for the Atlanta area. If you are not in the Atlanta area, you should tune to stations providing news and information for your area. It is important that you listen carefully to announcements from the station in your local area. We interrupt our programming at the request of the White House. This is the emergency alert system. All normal programming has been discontinued during this emergency.
Please stand by for a message from the representative of the President.
My fellow Americans, it does not give me great pleasure to announce the following news, given what this implies for the rest of the nation. Roughly half an hour ago, the deadline for Governor Hall to withdraw his state secession or to step down has passed. In accordance with the deadline, we have begun efforts to remove him from office by force. As I speak, our brave men and women in uniform are putting down this rebellion and quashing the insurrectionists who seek to destroy this nation. President Wells wants to make it very clear that this was not the outcome he was hoping for. Sending Americans to kill other Americans is not something we do with great glee. If anything, we do this with great sadness in our hearts. Though we expect to win this conflict, it will be a hollow victory. Anytime we kill other Americans, it is a loss for the entire nation. It is my hope through this conflict we come out of it stronger, and we can then begin to mend the wounds suffered by this tragic outcome. We are all Americans, and when this is over, we will still be Americans. We must continue to remember through these dark days. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.
That was a message from the representative of the President. We will now return to the emergency alert system.
This concludes operations under the emergency alert system. All normal programming operations may now resume.
We now go live to downtown Montgomery, where Governor Hall is reportedly making his last stand in a siege that has lasted into a second day. Live on the ground via telephone is our correspondent Gary White.
Tom, I'm standing in front of, or rather what is left of, the Alabama state capitol. Much of the city around me is on fire. And even now, militia snipers remain a threat, while American troops continue to storm buildings in search of stragglers. However, what is more important is the situation behind me. The soldiers and royal militia you hear behind me have been holding positions around the building for the last 36 hours. Governor Hall has been in contact with the commanding officer here, and the two have been negotiating on and off for his surrender. But so far, there has apparently been no progress.
Gary, has there been any indication that the military may just storm the building?
As far as I'm aware, no. With the situation in the city still volatile, it's possible that the military feels that there are more important things to worry about. But that doesn't make...
You communists are gonna have to do a lot better than that to force me out of here!
That sounded like Governor Hall.
Yes, it appears that Governor Hall has taken a position on the balcony with the megaphone. I'm not entirely certain what he's doing, but...
All of you are traitors to your nation! History will not remember you fondly!
Tom, during that shouting, I think I just saw a group of what I think are Navy SEALs just break into the building. Tom, we have gunshots inside the state capitol building. I repeat, we have shots fired inside the state capitol building. It is unclear what the status of the team that stormed the building is, but...
You think you're tough, huh? You think you're tough? Let's see how tough you are when I...
Gary, what just happened?
I'm not entirely sure, but given that there's... Tom, the SEAL team is back outside now, and they're dragging Governor Hall outside, and given the shooting that we've just heard, I believe he's dead.
Are you absolutely sure about that?
Yes, I am. One of the SEALs has been carried off in a stretcher, and Hall is not moving. Given that he was dragged out and not put on a stretcher, I find it unlikely that Hall is still alive, but hopefully we'll get a report on that as soon as possible, given what this would mean for the insurrection.
Okay, thank you for your report, Gary. Keep in touch.
Will do.
I'd like to apologize to the viewers for what they've just heard, but the matter of fact remains that the person responsible for the death and destruction over the last week may be dead. When I took this job, I thought I would not cover something as devastating as the nuclear terrorism that occurred in the wake of the Estonian-Russian War, or the death and destruction caused by the Ira virus, but here we are again. I hope we never experience anything so disturbing as what we've seen in the last few days, but I unfortunately have the feeling that this is not yet over. This is WTVA, and we'll be back shortly.
This is an administrative message from the state of Tennessee. All clear. The conflict in Alabama that prompted the usage of martial law and the shelter-in-place warning is no longer occurring. Repeating, the conflict in Alabama that prompted the usage of martial law is no longer occurring. It is now safe to leave your home. Additionally, while the shelter-in-place warning has been allowed to expire, martial law is no longer in effect. However, you are asked to not instigate any new riots, as you will be arrested. Normal television programming will now resume following the conclusion of this message. This concludes operations under the emergency alert system. We will now resume normal programming.